Allow me to extend a warm welcome to all the viewers on the internet and around the world. It is sunrise on YouTube, morning on Facebook, noon on Twitter, midday on Threads, afternoon on Twitch, sunset on Instagram, and evening on Rumble. I am your host, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. We are broadcasting live directly from the sanctum of solitude and the citadel at the end of time. Good evening, everyone. I am the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme. I am the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. And today I wanted us to perform a time travel analysis of your life and your existence. And perhaps we can come to answer the question, or rather the following questions. But the most important one would be for today: are you living in the past? Are you still living in the past? And if so, why? Why are you still living in the past? And then we can ponder a way to bring you face to face with the disappointment that is your reality. Today's article is going to show 9 characteristics that people have, or 9 characteristics of people who are still living in the past and who are unable to let go of some event, some memory, or even a feeling of something that happened in their past. Now, for people who had unfortunate incidents, a trauma of some type, or any negative type of event like abuse, whether it be physical, emotional, or otherwise, violence or violent encounters, or even witnessing violence and abuse, seeing somebody being treated terribly. If you've been a victim of neglect, especially childhood neglect and so forth, those incidents have their merit, right? And I believe you should be speaking, or those issues should be dealt with by a trained, skilled, qualified, experienced professional, right? And they should be dealt with a certain type of sensitivity and empathy for the victimized and the disenfranchised. But those aren't the people that I'm talking about today. If you look at the screen here, the man on the screen is evidently not a victim. This is not a person who has any indication of trauma, right? Or any indication of suffering from some type of malicious activity, right? Those people, like I said, they have their place and merit. But those are not the people whose past that I'm interested in perusing and analyzing. I'm interested in the people like the one that you see on the screen, the ones that had a good time, the ones that had a good past, the ones whose youth was vibrant and exciting, the ones that were happy in their youth, those that had activities and friends, and they were given access to places, the ones who had joy and ambition, goals. They had goals and confidence, and above all, they had the potential and the promise of a bright future. I'm referring specifically to a group of people that were between 20 and 27 years old at the time. If you look at the caption in the picture, it says very clearly that 2006 was 20 years ago. Almost two generations ago was 2006, right? And if you look back at the people who 20 years ago were in that bracket between 20 and 27, today they are between 40 and 47, right? So this age, 20 to 27, this is the golden window, right? This is the golden age of potentiality, where really anything can happen and anyone can become anything, right? This is where your potential begins to be fulfilled, and anything was possible. Rather, let me say, anything is possible. Remember, fellow time travelers, time travel isn't what you think it is. Wherever we land on our interactive timeline, you still meet all of the same characteristics and the same features that you have all over time. And what I mean by this is that for some of you, the ages 20 to 27 was your past. For others, it may be in your future, but for many people, it's happening to them right now. All the aspects of time exist simultaneously at every point on the interactive timeline. Keep that in mind when you look at these people and you realize that this was where their timeline started. If you look at the outfit, the glasses, the cap, the money, right? This is where their timeline began. Or rather, let me say, where it converged. There was a time of development and dreaming and ambition and that kind of thing. But at a certain point between 20 and 27, their ambition began to be fulfilled and success started to come their way. And they looked and acted and presented in a certain way. And the years just flew right by. The next thing they know, they are 42 years old, 43 years old, and this is still the type of behavior that they continue to uphold and to maintain. The irony is that for those that are in their tweens and in their teenage years and rather their adolescence, they are looking forward to all this. They are looking forward to the golden age of 20 to 27. For those that are in the Middle Ages, which is really 40 and above, I would say 40 to 50, I'd say is the Middle Ages. From 50 onwards, you can consider yourself a senior citizen. For those that are in the Middle Ages, they miss, right, and reminisce about the golden age, about that age 20 to 27. When they talk about back in the day, I used to do this is the age that they're talking about, because prior to that, they were under their parents' control for the majority of that, right? And then after this, 27, 28, 29, that's when most people start having kids. And by 30s, you're all full swing in the dark dimension, in marriage and legal matrimony and child support and all kinds of things. You're really in the system now. And some people might have different names for it, but this system where you're in, but I call it the dark dimension. Now, ironically, those that are in the golden age, they have no idea that they're in the golden age. They are missing the whole point of it completely oblivious as to exactly what it is that they have and what is passing them by. Isn't that ironic? And you must know that this short window of time here, it goes by in a flash. And it doesn't go by in a flash because time speeds up, but it's because there's a lot of things happening really at the same time. So your career start. So a lot of people will be in college, or they'll start working, or in and around there they'll finish college and start working, starting their career, starting to earn money, starting to build assets, starting to build their savings. They're really starting to get going, and there's a lot of things coming at you at the same time. Then because of that busyness, right, it feels as though those years really fly by, and they really do, but you also make some good decisions. You also get some good opportunities, right? But this is also where most bachelors are. The age of most bachelors is really, and I'm not including high school kids. I'm not going to include high school kids. Our conversation, you high school kids, you can go and watch that cat play a piano, finish high school, then you can join us in this conversation. Not to say that it's anything implicit, but it's just something that these conversations are not really things that I think school age children will be able to relate to readily, right? It's not all the way applicable to you, but the information is going to be good, right? But let's say you are 20 to 27, and you're a bachelor. I mean, you are really living it up. I think back, and I'm the ancient one. My time span is all the way to 100 years old, but I think back at my 20s and 30s, and as a bachelor, vasectomite, proud vasectomite, I will tell you those years were wonderful. Don't get me wrong, 40s, wonderful too, but in your 40s, priorities are completely different. Priorities are completely different, as they will be in your 50s and 60s, right? But those years for me, I had just finished my studies, and I immediately started my career, and I immediately started traveling the world. And I cannot tell you how many wonderful places that I was able to go to. Not every experience was perfect, but every experience was good. Every place was worth going to and going to again, right? So I really spent a lot of that time doing wonderful things, right? But a lot of bachelors are not, right? A lot of bachelors are going to are going to really end up bending the knee, right? Many batches don't know that in fact they have arrived at bachelorhood at this point. And I've said it before, you can ruin your bachelor life by doing too much, right? And people think, wow, you're a bachelor, you can do so many things. You can go here over and over, you can go to nightclubs over and over. The truth is that you only get your first experience once. You only get a new experience one time. So the next time, like if you go, let's say, to Berlin in Germany, you only get to go to Berlin the first time once. The next time is not the first time anymore, it's now the second time. you now have experience with Berlin, no matter what the experience is. And a lot of men don't realize that that first time is the first time. You have arrived at bachelorhood. The second time is not really bachelorhood, it's divorce, right? You at this age have arrived at the purest point of bachelorhood. No wife, no kids, and absolutely no problems and issues, right? And a lot of bachelors don't realize this. They believe that some reason bachelorhood somehow starts at a later stage in life, when they're more settled, when they've been promoted, when they're more financially viable. But you don't need to be financially viable to be a bachelor. You just need to be. You already are. You see, you were born a bachelor. You were born a bachelor. You became a knee bender, but you weren't born bending the knee. You were born standing tall. You decided to bend the knee, right? And a lot of guys think that, a lot of men think that the bachelor life comes later. And in truth, what happens is you are just discovered to be a bachelor later on in life. It's easier to discover a bachelor later on in life because they'll look at you and say, well, how old are you? Oh, 43, 44, 47, 49? You don't have any kids? Right? Right there, they know. Have you ever been married? No? Oh, right there, they know. But in your 20s, where everybody is single, nobody's married, there's no real way of identifying a true bachelor among all these weeds, right? So a lot of young men, a lot of young bachelors, when they've arrived, they spend that time wasting it on frivolous activities, in particular with those whimsical counterparts. And they waste their golden years. They waste their golden years with these whimsical counterparts. And eventually they end up bending the knee. By the time you're 27, 28, 29, they really tell you, man, it's time for you to bend that knee. But you're not getting out of your 30s without bending the knee somehow, some way. Statistically, most men already have kids by the time they're 60, 65, 90, like 93, 94% of men already have kids by the time that they're in their 60s, right? But very few men have kids between the age of 20 and 26. The statistics will tell you something to the effect that 40% of men all over the world don't have kids. That 40% is all collected in the 20 to 26. In fact, I'd say they count 18 to 28 and say this group or this decade of men don't have children, which is true, right? Because you're too young. You can barely support yourself, let alone a family. But over the age of 30, most people have kids. Most people, like by the time you're in your 40s, it already jumps up to like 88%. 88% in their 40s. By the time you're 60, it's over 90%, like 93, 94%, which is most men, right? And of all of those, 99% of men on this planet alive today will get married by the time that they're 60, at least one time. You're going to bend the knee. You're absolutely going to bend the knee. Unless if you don't use this golden age, right? And this is really the men that we're talking to. If you're a bachelor and you don't want no wife and no kids, by the time you hit 27, you need to know what you're going to do about that. You need to know, am I getting a vasectomy and am I freezing my sperm and then getting a vasectomy, or am I bending the knee? This is really the time, the golden age. This is the time for you to decide. Because ironically, right, for many knee benders, they end up regretting the debaucherous life, the reckless life, the adventurous life that they lived when they were bachelors. right? Because what they regret is how that life ended, right? It's the results that they regret, not the actions themselves. It's the results. So on the one hand, what they'll do is tell you about, oh, back in the day I used to get all of this, and back in the day I used to have all of that, and back in the day so many people used to love me for this, that, and the other, right? But then again, they'll turn around and say, but you know what, I regret, I shouldn't have helped so many people, I shouldn't have been so generous, I shouldn't have been so reckless, I shouldn't have partied so hard, I shouldn't have stayed up all night, which are all the activities that normal young people will do, right? And at the time that they were doing it, they didn't regret those actions. They didn't look back and then the following morning and say, man, we shouldn't have done that. There's not a single person who goes partying at night, has a great time, wakes up the next morning and regrets that. It's the results that they regret. It's the results of getting a counterpart pregnant. It's the result that, you woke up one day after a great time and they told you that last night was your last night of freedom. From now on, you're going to have to pay bills and be responsible for the rest of your life. And most men aren't prepared for that. Look at the guy in the picture today. Does this guy look like he's getting ready to go nurture a relationship? Does he look like he's getting ready to provide wisdom and fatherhood skills? Does he look like he's ready for dad and lads, father and son day? Absolutely not. Look at him. He's doing debaucherous, reckless, adventurous actions. And let me just extrapolate a little bit on this some more. All right. You see, I too lived as they did. I partied and celebrated my youth and my life like everybody else, my freedom, right? My self-determination, my liberty, my bachelor life, and I still celebrate that. And I celebrated it along with them. And for the most part, I mean, there's no reason for me to go into many details, but for the most part, our actions were, quite frankly, identical, if not the same. However, our outcomes were completely different. I ended up a vasectomite, and I ended up as the Bachelor Supreme. I ended up as the master of the deceptive arts, the Phantom Menace, right? On my way to becoming the Grand Master of the deceptive arts by proving my skills and my efficacy on a day-to-day basis. I'm the man who's preaching savings, not investing. Save your money, save your money, save your money. That's what I'm saying. You won't hear me telling you to invest your money. I'm not going to do you like that. I'm not going to tell you to take your money and give it to a stranger. Absolutely not. Stack. Save that money. Our purpose is to watch our bank account grow, not to watch the number of investments we have grow. I don't know about all that. I don't know about all that investment. I'm of the cash is king variety, not investments are king, right? And besides, all those people that are making those investments on your behalf, what are they doing them for? Money, exactly. You already have the money. Keep the money. Keep your money as much as you can. This is what I ended up with, this type of mentality. They ended up bending the knee and making children and with debts and responsibilities and so-called investments in properties that are consuming every cent they have, right? Mounting responsibilities, endless responsibilities. And we all started out with the same actions in the same way. And many of you are doing those actions right now. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with taking those debaucherous actions, living the life that you want to live, experiencing the freedom of youth. What I am saying is that you're going to regret those results. And when you regret those results, that's when people come back saying that back in the day, I used to do that. That's why you're still wearing the cap with the tank tops and the jewelry. Even though you've got a big gut, you got those man boobs and those skinny arms with the sagging skin, the double chin, the wrinkles on your faces, the gray hair, the nose hair. Your libido is down, your member doesn't go up. You get hangovers for 2 weeks instead of 2 hours. I mean, you men have hit the wall, and men do hit the wall. Men do hit the wall. I don't know why they give women such a tough time, for hitting the wall. I mean, some of you guys, I mean, your stomach and your man boobs tells you you've hit the wall, right? You look at that double chin, it tells you you've hit the wall. Your pants are small, but your shirts are extra large. And when you wear t-shirts, oh, you guys look terrible in these t-shirts. I'm not gonna lie to you, guys. T-shirts are not meant for old men who are overweight. They are meant for young, muscular, fit men to show off their physique, not for old men to try and still look young. And this is the thing. You could tell that somebody's living in the past just by the way they're dressing, by the way that they're acting, by the language that they use, and these men and these knee benders, because they didn't live out their youth to its fullest extent, right? So you had your 20s, but it ended mid 20s. You didn't drag it out all the way into your 30s and then your late 30s and then get bored with it and let it go. And this is what happens when you live the bachelor life. This is why I say you get to a point of existentialism, because you've really, really, what they call sucked the marrow out of life, right? Yeah, that didn't sound as good as it was in my head. But still, this is the expression, right? When you have a piece of chicken that's so good, and then you sort of bite off the bone, and then you suck the marrow from the inside of the bone of the chicken, leaving absolutely nothing but that just dry bone. And that's what happens when you live the bachelor life extensively. You really suck the marrow out of that life. And then at the end of it, it's just like a dry bone where really, 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 I've had all of this. I've had the good, the bad, the spicy, the bland, the salty. I've had the exciting, the boring. I've had the things that were supposed to be boring but ended up exciting, and the things that were supposed to be exciting and ended up boring. I've been lost in wonderful places, and I've found myself in terrible places, right? And all these things have happened in one bachelor life, and eventually you just get to the point where you've seen it all before as a bachelor. And I traveled all over the world in my 20s and 30s, right? And I did it when I had the energy, the strength, and I allowed myself the freedom to do so. And having the money just to care for myself, and quite frankly, a job where that thankfully remunerated me enough that I could do this and not bankrupt myself and do it regularly, man. There were years where I was traveling 4 times a year. And not 1 year, for like 5 or 6 years, I was just traveling 4 times a year. In that 5 years, I must have went to 20 or 30 countries or something like that. It was just, and still didn't bankrupt myself, all right? But the knee benders, they spent those years paying bills, raising kids, fighting with infants, and arguing with the counterparts, headaches, the counterparts' mother, the counterpart's dad, the counterpart's niece who's always pregnant, the nephew that's always in prison. You know what I'm talking about. They spent those years, their best, most fruitful, most productive years, just wasting it. and then at the end of that are just filled with regrets. The actions again that we took were quite similar. I did all that, but I ended up completely different while they ended up having to bend the knee and make promises to the counterparts they that they couldn't keep, quite frankly. Same actions, different outcome. And now knee benders are riddled with the regrets of wasted opportunities, unfulfilled ambitions, and just time that has gone past. Look at the man in this photo. This is a man who looks like he has regained his freedom. This is what divorced men look like after they come out of that romance war in that dark dimension. What they want to do is they want to finish off that bachelor life once more again. They want to suck the marrow out of that bone. And they want to do it the way that they should have done it the first time. But the years have gone. The years have truly gone. And what you're stuck with now is unfulfilled ambitions. There's nothing more ridiculous than seeing a man 55, 60 getting a tattoo. You should have got those tattoos when you were 23, 24, when they still look good on your body, so that when you're in your 40s and 50s, they've settled into your skin. Man, you don't want to be itching, trying to tap down an itchy tattoo in your 50s. Come on. Come on, man. So what do they do, these guys? This is one of the things they do. They go get tattooed. They go get those earrings. They start wearing jewelry, sunglasses with caps on. Instead of just wearing a proper sun hat like somebody your age should, they're wearing tank tops instead of shirts. You're wearing t-shirts and shorts. You're 52. You're almost a grandfather. And if you're 50 years old, let me explain to you something. If your children are 18 and out of school, you are old enough to be a grandfather, because your children can start working and they can make children of their own. By the time your kids are 20 years old, you're old enough to be a grandfather. And you should be grateful if you're not, because that's a whole nother game. But what do they do, these guys? Old enough to be somebody's grandfather. You're dressing like people who are in the 18, 19, 20, 21 age range, which is unacceptable, right? And then even worse, you still want to go out all night. You want to go to the nightclubs. You want to go and party. You know what is an indication of defeat of the nightlife? People like me who go to restaurants in the evenings, right? Because it's like it's an indication. Yeah, no, I do it too, but I'm in the bachelor life, right? Eventually, I'm gonna go out somewhere. Eventually, I'm gonna want to stretch my legs, right? I don't have people running around in my house, so I'm not expending energy here, right? Eventually, I'll have that energy to blow, but whereas in your early 20s, you may have wanted to go to a nightclub all night and dance that energy away. You may have wanted to go on an adventure, to go to the beach, go swim that energy away, get on those jet skis, right? Just ride that energy away, get on those quad bikes. I'm not a motorcycle person. I don't have a problem with motorcycles, but I just don't feel safe, right? I'll definitely ride a quad bike. I love quad bikes. Up in the mountains, all kinds of things, right? So that's the irony, right? I'll ride the hell out of a quad bike in a desert, but I wouldn't ride a safe motorcycle in traffic. And I've ridden motorcycles up and down Asia. I never felt comfortable on a motorcycle. But on a jet ski, like I can crash some small waves on a jet ski, no problem. To each his own, I suppose. To each his own. But the you know to have done that in your 20s, early 20s, late 20s, early 30s, late 30s. When you're in your 50s and 40s, you can still do it. It's a nice activity, it's a nice fun thing. But effectively, what you're doing is more sitting activities. So you're going to restaurants where you have to sit all night instead of a nightclub where you have to stand all night, right? And that's an indication of defeat. So that's what you'll see with a lot of these older guys, a lot of these older stars, a lot of these still want to be part of the nightlife people. You're part of the nightlife, but you're sitting down all day. You're sitting down all night, right? Because you got kids that need to go to school in the morning. So even if you're up all night, you still have to have your wits about you in the morning so you can send the kids to school. What is that? What is that? You still want to act like young people, but you're just not pulling it off. That's because you're not living a bachelor's life. It's because you cannot be up all night and then have kids to go to school in the morning, right? That's why the Bachelor 2.0 comes out looking like this. And on the one hand, it's a criticism, but on the other hand, it's an indication of unfulfilled ambition. He's going to live like this for 5 glorious years and then settle into himself, right? So on the one hand, I'm not saying don't do it, man. You have to burn that bachelor energy off and then settle into it, because otherwise it just bubbles up that solitude inside you. I keep telling you that every man has that solitude inside him that just wants to come out and live the life that you've always lived, right? So you come out and you want to do it like you did it when you were young. And it doesn't work that way. I know you have to burn that energy off, and sure, go ahead, do it. Travel, stay up all night, but at least plan for it. Sleep all day and then stay up all night. Go to places where you can sit down. As I do, I sit down. I'm not standing up in the club all night, and I'm definitely not screaming at some young man to pour me a drink that he's not going to remember. I'm not going to the bar. Absolutely not. I don't care where I am. I am not standing at the bar. I'm not sitting at the bar. I'm not near the bar. I will be on the other side. I will be at the balcony overlooking the view. I will be by the window looking straight at the window. Sir, I need you to come and serve me. Ma'am, I need you to come and ask me what I want, and I'll give you my order in a low and orderly voice. I am not shouting. I am not shouting to get a drink. Absolutely not. You have to raise your voice just to get something to part your thirst. This is the environment you're in? No. Been there, done that. I've had my time. But this is where you're going when you don't know how to let go of the past, right? You end up acting like young people and you're not pulling it off because the years have gone. And attempting to relive and maintain the glory of your youth not only looks ridiculous, quite frankly, it's pathetic. It's pathetic because you are playing pretend. As a child, you played pretend to be an adult, and now as an adult, you're playing pretend to act like a child. It's deeply troubling. And you're speaking to somebody who's lived a life as a bachelor. There's a point where some things you just have to let go. You really have to let go of some things, right? Otherwise, it starts to look ridiculous. It looks uncomfortable, man. People really don't know where to place you. On the other hand, you're old, your face is wrinkled, your beard is gray, your hair is gray, and they want to give you the respect that is due to you. But because you're acting like a bro, like a young bro, right? They don't know how to respond to you because they don't even use the term bro. This lets you know when people saying things like passport bro, you know it's a group of older men trying to relive their youth. Young people don't say bro anymore. They have a whole another line of vocabulary that you and I have never even heard. And in fact, while I know that I'm speaking quite formally and with a certain level of etiquette, I know that young people will hear and understand my words better than they will hear and understand your slang, right? Because I'm using the standard language where everybody will be able to comprehend what I'm saying with relative ease. Where you're using slang from 25 years ago and nobody understands you. Do you understand that? When you're using the slang where you're talking about your real in from the streets, like all the streets have cameras on them. All the streets have cameras on them, right? And if you are out there, they just send the police and have you arrested. When you say that, it's ridiculous, especially because you live in a mansion in the suburbs and you're like a multimillionaire entertainer who should really be at work. But, you have a chauffeur, man. You know what I mean? You have a personal trainer and a doctor that knows you personally that delivered your kids. Like these are the indications of a stable and successful man, right? These are not the indications of a young man who's in the streets. Nobody even knows what that means. In the streets. Nobody's in the streets anymore. They're all on their phones. This is troubling. And this article today will show us just how troubled you are when you can't let go of the past and who you used to be. People who are living in the past often display these 9 behaviors without realizing it. Oh, I like that. I like that parenthesis. Without realizing it. The author is Tina Fey. It was published May 13th, 2024, and it is from the website experteditor.com.au. AU, I believe that's from Australia. So we're getting our information from all over the world. Living in the past can be a tricky thing. Often we don't even realize we're stuck in yesterday's memories. I think people realize when you're saying back in the day, I used to, it's an indication that you're not in back in the day anymore. The difference between living in the past and learning from it lies in self-awareness. There we go, self-awareness. This is our language, right? The self-awareness, self-determination, self-preservation. So let's see what they mean there. The former, in other words, the difference between living in the past and learning from it. So we're talking about living and learning. The former, learning, living, I beg your pardon, hold us back, while the latter, learning, propels us forward. There you go. Recognizing these behaviors is the first step to moving on. And that's where I come in. This is Tina. That's where Tina comes in. I've identified 9 behaviors that people living in the past often display, and you might be shocked to see how many apply to you. Oh, this is going to be great. Let's dive in. Number 1, they romanticize the old days. There you go. All you people that are still talking about how good the 90s was and how great the music was and how love was still love, you're all living in the past. You need to let go. It says, living in the past often means seeing things through rose-colored glasses, of course, right? The 90s the past is always better than the memory of the past is always better than the reality of the present, which is not always true. You'll find these individuals often talking about the good old days. What did I tell you about the good old days? How things were better, simpler, or more fulfilling. And while reminiscing can be a healthy part of life, getting stuck in yesterday's glory can prevent us from fully embracing today's opportunity. Isn't that just a golden sentence? Just that part there sums it all up for me. How things were simpler, better, more fulfilling in the 90s. You're getting stuck in yesterday's glory. And in fact, it can prevent you from seizing today's opportunity. This is already a great article. Recognizing this pattern is crucial. I see it all the time. I see it all the time. And it shows especially in the way you dress. I'm telling you, it's those shorts and the t-shirts. Look at how look at how they dress 6-year-old boys. The only difference between you and what a 6-year-old boy is wearing is the color, right? Is the color of the clothes. But those shorts, those t-shirts, those running shoes, oh, just don't show your legs. Just wear longs. Really, the solution is for you to wear long trousers all the time. You should only be wearing shorts for exercise and at the beach, right? And at the beach. So you should change at the beach and then change when you leave the beach, right? Or the swimming pool. Don't be outside with your swimming attire. This is good. It says here, it's the first step in understanding whether you are cherishing memories or living in them. I think a lot of people go from cherishing memories and then living in them and then trying to relive them, especially the counterpart. Don't let her ex boyfriend come back into the picture. And don't let that ex boyfriend be me. Oh man, don't let me be the phantom menace in your life. You will have no peace. You will have no peace. Right? They used to have a phrase for it, the side, this and that. Oh man, I was just a phantom menace. I just call myself a phantom menace. I will terrorize your relationship. Don't let that be me. Ex-boyfriend coming in from out of town, because I'm coming in from all over the world with all kinds of stories. I'll be telling her about places that I visited that she can't even pronounce. I'll be like, look at this picture of me in Machu Picchu, huh? Things like that. Man, women love that kind of stuff. Women love that kind of stuff. Ex-boyfriends coming in from out of town speaking languages they don't understand. Seriously. But these are the counterparts. They're just insatiable like that. There's nothing you can do about it. Most of these will actually, I think the counterpart will relate to. I think the counterpart will relate to a lot of living in the past, but I'm not a counterpart, so I don't really have experience in their point of view, right? But let's continue. Number 2 is they resist change. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. There are people who hate online dating because it's not what dating used to be, right? So I think like a lot of people who are successful in online dating, they just accept it for what it is and they use it for what it is. But people who are living in the past really cannot accept the changes. They can't accept the changes in the economy. They can't accept the changes in society, social movement, technological advances. Really, and then they just end up using outdated technology until it's run down and broken. All right. So let's read it. Resistance to change is another common trait of those living in the past, of course. I remember a time when I was offered an exciting job opportunity in a city halfway across the country. But the thought of leaving behind my familiar surroundings, friends, and favorite sports filled me with dread. Oh, listen to that. You know, People don't want to take opportunities because they don't want to lose out on what's familiar. But those things aren't going anywhere. Those people aren't going anywhere, man. You can always come back 10 years later and some of the people will still be there. And those that moved on were going to move on anyway. So now you missed out on a good opportunity and a chance of learning a new area. Instead, now you only know one area, but you could have known 2 areas really, really well. That would have served you in tremendous ways. Tina says, I was so hung up on my comfortable past that I was ready to let go of potentially life-changing future, of a potentially life-changing future. Imagine that. Holding on to the memory of a past and then ruining your life. Because these once in a lifetime opportunities, they really do come once in a lifetime, right? And it's like, you know how it works. It works like this. When you enter a certain industry, right, you get an opportunity in that industry, but one opportunity opens another and another and another. Suddenly you have experience and somebody saw you and thought of you in another role or in another capacity or in another you know, performing another task with your same skills, right, and being effective. So it opens opportunities to other things. That's why when people get into certain industries, they can sustain their lives in that industry for years and years and years because one opportunity opens another. But until you get into that industry, those opportunities will not be open for you. You'll have the opportunities of another industry. So when you get into certain industries, it doesn't just change, the job, the location. You also get an opportunity to grow. So she really lost out on a lot, right? She says it took some self reflection to realize that I was resisting change because of my attachment to the past. Once I acknowledged this, I was able to make a leap and embrace the new adventure. If you find yourself hesitating to grab new opportunities or break old patterns, you might be living in the past without even realizing it. That's a great indication of living in the past. Not taking advantage of good opportunities that make sense, um, especially if you're going to get paid more money or have more responsibility and have a higher position. You should absolutely take those. Um, Otherwise, you're just living in the past. Number three, they struggle with forgiveness. Yeah, this is me. I'm really not the forgiving type. I don't do that forgiveness part of life so well. Holding on to past hurts and grievances is another sign of living in the past. When we harbor resentment, we're essentially reliving those painful moments over and over again. It's like carrying an emotional baggage that weighs you down. Um, I agree with this. I agree with this. When you hold on to past hurts, on the one hand, it's really reliving those past hurts. On the other hand, it can be learning from those mistakes, right? So this is the balance that she's describing here. But I would say if somebody has hurt you and betrayed you, remembering that is good because then it just keeps you away from those people, right? Remembering how they betrayed you, how they hurt you, just keeps you away from those people. Otherwise, you'll forgive them and they'll just play you again. Interestingly, studies have shown that forgiveness can lead to improved mental and physical health. Yes, if you are angry and holding a grudge, forgive yourself for being angry and holding that grudge. Allow yourself the freedom to be angry and holding that grudge, right? You don't have to forgive the other people, but if being angry is causing you mental and physical unwellness, right? You need to allow yourself and forgive yourself. Be endlessly generous with yourself, right? Just say, you know what, you were angry, you were justified to be angry, but there's no reason for you to not enjoy things while you're still angry at those people, right? So you can pigeonhole that happiness, that anger, and address it to only specific people while you can enjoy other people, right? By forgiving, especially yourselves, we're not saying what happened was okay, but we're choosing to release its hold on us. Sure, if you say so. Letting go of past hurts allows us to move forward and make room for new experiences and emotions. It's a liberating step towards living in the present. I also think it depends on the magnitude of commitment that you make to people. If you promise to be married with someone and you have kids with them and you build a life and they betray you, that can be quite difficult to move past, right? You will be forced then to forgive that person because you're probably going to see them over and over hundreds of times. So even if you're still upset at them, you still have to find a way to compromise with yourself and make peace. This is very different from a bachelor and a vasectomite. If I was betrayed by someone as a bachelor and a vasectomite, I'd leave them and never speak to them again. This would give me peace. Rather than having to speak to someone again and again and again who betrayed me, I don't know about all that, right? I'm all for moving forward, but how is it moving forward if you're still here with the same person? Change for me is not change unless it's permanent, right? So if somebody, like, let's say you're in a marriage and your partner betrays you and you file for divorce and you still live, and then you leave them, you go to one place and they stay in another place, the two of you still practically have to raise kids together. I mean, you're practically still married, you're just living in different houses. This is the truth. You're just living in different houses. You haven't really moved on, you haven't changed anything. It's not change unless it's permanent. She continues to say it's a liberating step towards living in the present. They avoid taking risks is number 4. People who live in the past often avoid taking risks. This behavior stems from past failures or disappointments that make them wary of trying new things. Instead of seeing these experiences as opportunities for growth and learning, they review them as a reason to play it safe. But life can't really go on without us taking a leap of faith. It's through these experiences that we grow, learn, and ultimately evolve. This depends on how much you lost taking the previous risk. So, for instance, if you were in the dark dimension of legal matrimony and you got divorced and got wiped out, all your money got wiped out, your economics got wiped out, your savings, your assets, your pension, everything got wiped out, you're not going to try that again. Logically, you wouldn't try that again. For me, in terms of these relationships and the romance was me, I can tell you I'm completely done with dating. And I don't mean like in terms of like I'll go on a date. I'll absolutely go on a date. I'll go have some food and drinks with someone. We could stay up and watch the sunrise as we I don't know, listen to mellow jazz. Whatever you people are into, right? I'll absolutely have those experiences. But you get one of those with me. Maybe you'll get 1.5. But we're not doing this for months and months and years. I've been there, I've done that. And in the end, there was really nothing to show for it. And now, as a vasectomite, there's really nothing in it for me, right? Relationships, I believe, are for young people who are still looking for someone to share a life with. I'm not that person. I'm really not looking for someone to share life with, or too much of my time. But like again, think of it like when you're having a party and a celebration. Most parties don't really last beyond 5 or 6 hours. 5, 6 hours, the party ends, everybody goes home, right? But you would have had enough of it in about 3 or 4, right? Why do we need more than that? Why do we need more than 5, 6 hours of celebration and you go live your life and I go live mine? Right? Because otherwise we're just entering into a dark dimension that, quite frankly, I wouldn't want to be into. Now, does this mean I'm living in the past or am I moving forward? I would argue if you were in a relationship and it didn't work out and you wanted to make that right within yourself and you thought your best way was starting another relationship, to me, this is not moving forward. This is just going back to an old pattern, right? Again, it's not change unless it's permanent. So you're done with that past relationship and then you go into another relationship and you experience the same thing. It's not really change, right? So if you've been in relationships 3, 4, 5, 12, 20, I don't know how many relationships people have, and at the end of it you're like, you know what, I need a change, that would mean you stop being in relationships. That would indicate a change, not going into another relationship, right? How it says here, it's through these experiences that we grow. So how are you growing if you're just repeating the same pattern? If you learn, what have you learned if you're just repeating the same pattern? And how have you evolved if all you're doing is repeating the same pattern? This is a bit of a contradiction, right? This is why after you've been married, you don't get married again. That's growing, learning, and changing. That's evolution, right? You've been in relationships, you've been dating since you were in your 20s, you're in your 30s, you're in your 40s, now you're in your 50s, you're a bachelor, you're still dating. That's not evolution. Maybe dating with a vasectomy, sure. But dating under the same traditional circumstances? No. You're still living in the past. For number five, so we know that people who live in the past, they frequently feel nostalgia. Nostalgia is a double-edged sword. While it can bring comfort and happiness and an excessive Let's try this again. While it can bring comfort and happiness, an excess of it can keep you tethered to the past. Um, Nostalgia is the feeling of missing a person or a place in the past, right? So you miss your old home, or you miss your old best friend, or your old high school, that kind of thing, right? People living in the past often find themselves lost in. Let's read that again. It says they long for past experiences, relationships, and simpler times. So nostalgic people, especially the counterpart, they're always thinking about their exes, their past relationships, their past experiences, thinking that things were simpler, especially when those bills start coming every month. When those bills come, oh, they definitely start thinking about the days when they didn't have bills, right? You always hear people say, "Oh, you don't know what it's like not to have bills." Yeah, I do. I'm a bachelor, right? I don't have to pay bills for other people, right? But being a bachelor for life at least, I find that I'm not experiencing too much of this nostalgia because I have things that I can look forward to in my future. So I'm not also it's like this is what really causes this. When you look at the future and the future looks bleak, then you start to say, you know what, the past used to be better. My relationships used to be better. Things were simpler. This longing can prevent them from fully engaging with their present and making the most of what's happening right now. Yeah, usually the present is the problem because it's not going the way you thought it would, right? Or the way you thought it would, because you didn't get the results that you wanted. You took these actions, but you didn't get the results that you wanted. So now you're missing the past. If you catch yourself frequently reminiscing about the past, it might be a sign that you're living in it. It's important to remember that while the past shapes us, we have the power to shape our present and future. This is true for most people. But if you have kids, that means your future is already shaped for you. Really, there isn't much in terms of wiggle room. What are you going to do? Make extra money so you can pay a nanny so you can go party all night? Sure, but you still have the kids, right? So, it's those never ending responsibilities. That's what causes regret. When people look at their lives and they realize that, you know what, this is not going away. And these kids are forever. Just remember that. Divorce, you can get divorced from your marriage, but these kids are forever. Number six, it says here that you people who are living in the past, you struggle to form new relationships. I suppose if you've had bad relationships, if you have one bad relationship and another bad relationship and another bad relationship, or they all start off good and all end up catastrophically, you're not very likely to try again, right? So if you've had like ongoing bad experiences, you're not likely to try again. It's not like a situation where you have a girlfriend and you love each other and she loves you and you're loyal and you're faithful, but you're both young and her parents moved to the other side of the country and you still love each other, but because of distance, or she moves to the other side of the world and it ends and you don't get to see her again, but it was a wonderful experience except for the fact that her parents moved away, right, and took her with her. Beyond that, it's probably going to end badly. You know what I mean? So when you've had that kind of experience, you might be inclined to try again. But if you've had the experiences that most of us had, No. It says here, forming new relationships can be challenging for those living in the past. They may still be holding on to old relationships, making it hard to open their hearts to new ones. Imagine walking through life with a heart filled with yesterdays. It can be hard to make room for someone new when you are still holding on to someone who's no longer there. This doesn't just apply to romantic relationships, it can impact friendships and family connections too. Um, Imagine if somebody passes away that you care about, right? So you end up thinking about them a lot, wondering what they would think, wondering how they would feel about something, upholding their values and avoiding the things that oh, my father would have disapproved of this, so I'm not doing that, even though he's passed away, and even though you want to, right? So, yeah. Heartbreak can do that, right? It's heartbreaking, but it's also a sign that you're living in the past. So heartbreak can really do that to people. Death in the family, divorce, extreme breakups, they can create a situation where people really are not open to new relationships. Myself, Bachelor for Life, vasectomite, I can tell you that I've been betrayed several times in relationships, but I've also betrayed people in relationships. I've betrayed a lot of people in relationships. And having been on both sides of the betrayal scale, I can tell you that, you know what, there's a point where you kind of get tired of just being betrayed all the time. And then you get tired of betraying people too all the time. Right? It's just like, okay, so now you're going to betray me, I'm going to betray you. This is happening again. Um, it's exhausting being around people you don't trust and people who can't trust you, right? It's one thing if that's why I call it the romance wars. It's one thing to be with them and then withdraw into your own place, but even then you're wondering, what are they doing when I'm not there? What are they doing behind my back? What are they lying about? This is really why I just can't be in relationships. I just don't trust these people. I don't trust anyone. And I know I'm going to betray them. First chance I get. First chance I get, right? Why wait? Why wait for someone to betray you? Betray them first. It says here, because every person we meet has the potential to touch our lives in ways we can't even imagine. Yes. So, it could be positive or it could be like devastation. You could be with a criminal. And I don't need those problems. There's some people who like that criminal element. They find it exciting to live outside of the law. I don't need those problems. I don't need the lawyer fees. It's one thing to play it out and think you're in a movie. But those lawyer fees, man, those lawyer fees are real, right? I get it. Maybe you have a certain edge about you. Maybe the ladies like that about you, right? You give them, I don't know. There's an interesting part to your story, and then there's the lawyer fees. Yeah, good luck with those lawyer fees. Number 7, they compare their present to their past. One behavior I've noticed when living in the past is a tendency to compare the present with the past. There was a time when I'd look at my life and feel like it didn't measure up to the past. The successes I'd had, the relationships I'd built, the adventures I'd embarked on, it all seemed to be much more vibrant and meaningful in the rearview mirror. Right. The idea of the past, the memory of the past, is always better than the perception of the present, even though the present is much better. Right. So I'm going to give you a terrible example of this. Have you ever seen a situation where somebody takes a counterpart on vacation and the counterpart is just moody all the time? Because what they're doing in their mind is they're comparing this experience with a past experience, right? And the memory and the emotions of that past experience is always going to supersede the reality of now. Even though now you're in a better location, you're in a better hotel room, you've got better activities, everything is so much better. She won't just compare the experience, she'll compare the feeling, right? So she'll say, well, I've stayed in a hotel before. So So the feeling of staying in a hotel is not new. I was expecting that feeling. So I'm not getting that feeling. Therefore, I'm not as happy, even though the hotel that you're staying in is a penthouse suite. And she's never stayed in a penthouse suite. She'll compare it to that dingy one bedroom that she stayed in. And the memory of that one bedroom will always somehow supersede the penthouse. But years later, what she'll then do is compare her next experience, which is back to the single room, and she'll compare that experience with the penthouse and say, well, the penthouse was much better. But in the reality, this is what happens when people live in the past. This is what this lady is describing here. If you have a counterpart who's living in the past, they will always be comparing their past situation with the current situation, even though the current situation is infinitely better. So she'll always tell you, oh, I've already been to this and this place. Oh, I've already eaten in this and this restaurant. Oh, I've already done this and this activity or something similar, right? But when you inquire more, what you'll discover is that the activity that they're describing is subpar and mediocre compared to what's happening right now. But the memory, she says, there was a time when I looked at my life and didn't feel like it didn't measure and feel like it didn't measure up to the past, right? So the feeling currently is not measuring up to the feeling that she has about the past. The successes, right? The perceived successes, the relationships I'd built, the adventures I'd embarked on, all seemed so much more vibrant and meaningful in the rear view mirror. So, what she's experiencing now, she's experiencing it and it feels mundane. But the things from the past, they all seem more vibrant and more meaningful despite their mediocrity. This is very insightful stuff. But this comparison only served to rob me of my present joy, correct? So you're in a penthouse suite right now and you don't have the wherewithal to enjoy it. But instead, what you're doing is you're comparing it to that one bedroom that you used to share, right? This is how really they are. And they'll tell you, man, college was so great when, you know how hungry college students are. I used to be a college student. And I'm telling you, financially, it's the worst time of your life. The only thing that makes it worthwhile or palpable is that, everyone is suffering together. That's really what makes it more palpable. And that feeling of unity, right? That feeling of, hey, we're in this together, we can pull this off together. That feels great. But you come out into the real world and you start making some money, you realize that that's not the way to live, man. That's really not the way to live, especially when you go to an exotic island somewhere. Go to like somewhere like Southeast Asia, right? Go to an island, like from the mainland, go to an island and ride a jet ski on that island. And then you remember back to your college days and you'll be like, man, that was miserable. That was completely miserable. I don't ever want to live like that again. But for these people, they look back at those moments and think, man, we were so happy. No, we weren't happy, right? We weren't happy. She says, it prevented me from seeing the beauty of my current circumstances and appreciating how far I've come. Number 8 is they hold on to old grudges. This is me. This is me all over. I'm very good at cutting people off. We could be in a relationship for 5 years, 10 years, but if you go past a certain point, I'll cut you off and never speak to you again. Really, I'm not about to let somebody else's child do me like that. I'm a vasectomite. Right? Like, I have no biological bond with anyone, right? It's all social. It's all, do we enjoy each other's time? And if at any point during that interaction I'm betrayed, I'm stabbed in the back, I'm disrespected, I'm belittled, I'm unappreciated, I leave. Just that simple, I leave, right? And I'll just go be alone. But it's not in my nature, it's not in my interest, it's not my prerogative to tolerate anyone. Right? Work is completely different, but in my private capacity, I'm tolerating very little, right? So I can really cut you off and just never speak to you again, right? Holding on to grudges, she says, holding on to old grudges is a clear sign of living in the past. It's like carrying around an old suitcase full of anger, hurt, and resentment. I'm okay with that. These grudges can consume a lot of mental and emotional energy, keeping you stuck in past conflicts and preventing you from moving forward. Just move away from them, right? Somebody does these things, if somebody causes you to feel anger, hurt, resentment, and they are consuming a lot of emotional energy, mental and emotional energy, you need to just move forward, right? For me personally, it's just moving on with my life, literally getting up and going away, right? But for people without vasectomies, if this is your baby mama, the infamous baby mama, the infamous baby daddy, the bender, somebody that who you quite frankly you have to deal with for the rest of your life. What else are you gonna do but take that anger and put it into a suitcase? Right? Because if you're a vasectomite, you can just walk away, never speak to that person again, and never feel the anger, and never feel the need to address the issue. Right? Oh, you betrayed me, you stabbed in the back, you lied to me, and now we have to find forgiveness? No, just walk away. Then you don't have to feel nothing. You don't have to be stuck with resentment. You can just move on, right? Try again or don't try again if you choose, right? If you don't find yourself nursing old wounds, if you find yourself nursing old wounds and unable to let go of past hurts, it's time to recognize that you might be living in the past. You know, I'm not big into forgiveness. So I'm not big, especially like in my private capacity. I'm not the kind of person who will be betrayed and then try and find a way to forgive. I just leave. And I find that it works pretty well for me. Like the people who I left behind. The fact that I don't see them every day and I don't see them all the time or regularly enough, I can go long periods of time and forget what they did to me. But if I was seeing them all the time, every day, that would just act as a reminder of their betrayal. Every time they get a phone call or a text message, I'd be looking at it and saying, "Is it that same person you betrayed me for?" And they'll show you, "Oh no, it's my uncle." It's like, okay, so it is the person you're betraying me for, right? So there's really no way of working around that type of anger. If you are still in that person's life, I don't know what you're going to do. Better to just live in the past, I guess. Remember, forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about letting yourself free from the chains of the past. It's about choosing peace over bitterness and stepping into the future unburdened by old grudges. You see, I'm not all about that forgiveness. I just leave you and just go, right? Remember, violence and aggression, that kind of thing is completely out of the question. If you use violence and aggression, you're going to be arrested, right? Best to just leave a miserable person. Listen, if somebody lies to you, betrays you, stabs you in the back, causes you anger, hurt, and the feelings of resentment, I mean, what are you going to do to somebody who's already done five things to you? Because they're going to do a sixth. And all you've done is just give them an opportunity to do it again. When that feeling comes, that feeling of hurting somebody comes again, they're going to do it. But if you walk away, you need to prevent people from hurting you. This is something that people are not saying in this article. Here it just implies that you have to just allow hurt to happen and deal with it internally. When in truth, you need to stop people from hurting you. You need to be able to prevent people from hurting you, because eventually they're just gonna go too far, right? People will go too far. You need to protect yourself. And like Sun Tzu says, the ability to protect ourselves lies in our own hands, but the opportunity of defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy himself. So this works the same thing for the counterpart. They can protect themselves, and you are giving them the opportunity to hurt you. By allowing them into your life, you are giving them the opportunity to hurt you, and they can only hurt you after you give them the opportunity. So don't do that. Right? Freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy. Number 9, it says they fear the future. Sure, if you're living in the past, right? These people who are scared of AI is the future. AI is coming for your job. The computers are rising, right? The robots are rising. It's the end of humanity. Those people, right? Remember that young lady who said the world was going to end about 5-6 years ago? And the world hasn't ended, right? So people who like to live in the past, they can be afraid of the future, because the future may not hold their skill, their capacity, what they have valuable. Their skill may not be valuable, and they may be unwilling to change, which is another problem, right? Ironically, one of the most telling signs of living in the past is the fear of the future. When we're stuck in the past, the future can seem scary and uncertain. We fear change because we're comfortable with what we know. Well, that's how it is, right? And the unknown can be intimidating. That's really how it is, right? Change is unpredictable. This is what they're not telling you. Change is very unpredictable. So you don't know exactly how things will play out in the end, right? But that's why a lot of people hold on to their past behaviors. They want to return to their bachelor life because they think if they repeat those actions, they'll get those same results. But you're like 20 years, 25 years older. You need to be acting completely different. You want some of the same results, but you cannot go about getting those results by repeating the actions of young men. Because eventually, listen, you act like a 20-year-old, 22-year-old. When you come up against a real 22-year-old on that dance floor and they flip backwards and land like a superhero, and all you can do is take a step to the left and take a step to the right and take another step to the left. And that's your whole dance sequence. You're going to see that you're completely out of your depth. Right? And these 22-year-olds, man, they've got crazy moves. They got crazy dance moves. It's not the doo-wop session of the 80s, right? Where you just got to turn around one time and then step forward and nailed it. Not at all. You got to do gymnastics to get on the dance floor, man. You really got to do gymnastics to get on the dance floor. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're going to go on the dance floor just to turn around? To twirl one time? No. We want to see gymnastics, man. We want to see kung fu style dance moves. And if you don't have that, you don't have anything. That's the level out there. But you're now stuck, trying to relive the past. You're stuck in the past because you're scared of the future. And things have changed. Man. You really can't go back and do things the way that you used to do as a bachelor, right? You really can't go back and do things the way that you used to as a 22-year-old bachelor. It's just not going to work out the same, right? You need to find a new way of living the bachelor life, more calm, more stable, more intelligent, more superior than what the young bachelors are living, right? You shouldn't even be in the nightclubs, man. Let's be honest. They need an age restriction in the nightclubs. But the truth is they won't give you that age restriction because it's all the older men that have the money. They are hoping one day that older men will come in and just spend tremendous amounts of money in these establishments. But truthfully, we need an age restriction in these places. It gets embarrassing, man. It really gets embarrassing. And then it says here, but here's the truth: the future is coming, whether we fear it or not. I like that. And the only way to truly embrace it is to let go of the past. Because only when we free ourselves from yesterday can we fully step into tomorrow. I like everything about that sentence or that group of sentence, right? The future is coming, whether we like it or not. There's nothing we can do to stop it. Right? Look at the technology that we have today: the tablets, the phones, the computers. Computers, we still have computers and we have TVs. In fact, what we're having is more technology and more options of technology, not less. The future is coming, whether it intimidates you or not, right? Whether you're scared of it or not. And you need to be able to act right in that future. And you also need to be still productive in that future. And you still need to be able to get money in that future, right? The only way is to embrace it. We need to let go of the past and also let go of past doctrines. This is especially true for us bachelors, man. We gotta let go of the old bachelor way of maintaining alpha masculinity, being the head of the household, providing and protecting. All those things we need to let go of. These things are things from the past. Wanting traditional roles, those things are all the things of the past, man. The laws have changed. We need to update our synapses to the changes of the laws. The circumstances have changed. We need to update our synapses. Vasectomies are available. Sperm cryopreservation is available, right? That's a nice word, sperm cryopreservation. In other words, freezing your sperm, right? It's available. These options are all available to us. This technology exists right now, right? But we cannot truly embrace that technology if you're still looking for a traditional wife. You still want somebody to bake bread in an oven when she can just buy the bread in 10 minutes. She's got to spend 8 hours breaking bread. What nonsense is that? We really need to step into the future, even as bachelors. We need to step into the future, accept the technology, accept the philosophy. Yes, I know I'm using a 2,500-year-old philosophy in the art of war, but that's because there's no other better philosophy. You have a better philosophy than the art of war, I'd happily hear it, right? I'd happily listen to that philosophy. But, it's ancient knowledge, but new purpose. And this is where we are moving with this, right? She says, because only when we free ourselves from yesterday can we fully step into tomorrow. Only by letting go of the doctrine of old can we truly step into the future of the vasectomites. This has been a very inspirational reading for me, right? It's really time for us to move forward, right? To embrace the future of the bachelor life instead of holding on to the past. It's gone, and there's nothing we can do to bring it back. She concludes by saying, reflecting on the journey, human behavior is complex and often deeply rooted in past experiences. This is true. It's these experiences that shape who we are, how we react, and where we find ourselves in life. Living in the past might seem like harmless, reminiscing, or holding on to old grudges, but it can subtly affect our present and future. She has demonstrated that. It's like walking forward while constantly looking back. If you've recognized some of these behaviors in yourself, it's not a cause for alarm, but an opportunity for introspection and growth. You have the power to break free from the past and embrace the beauty of now. Isn't that just a lovely article? I think that was a well done and well written article, and it really sums up in a magnificent way what we're trying to discuss. So yes, please go and look at the experteditor.com.au and try and find Tina Fey's work. She's a magnificent writer. But ultimately, this is the end of the edification and almost the end of the video. The real question is, are you living in the past? Are you chasing traditionalism in a modern world? Are you still holding on to the romanticism of the 90s and the music of the early 2000s, the superstardom of the early 2000s? Are you still watching television in a world of streaming? Are you still making movies for blockbusters instead of just making them straight to be streamed? You're spending, there are people spending billions of dollars on products that nobody wants and nobody consumes anymore, hoping that those products will come back. And there are men, so many men, and I don't even want to get into the lives of the counterpart because they love nothing more than to live in the past. They live residually. They live according to their memory. So they compare how they feel now with how they felt before. And they compare how they feel now with how they felt before. They are constantly living in the past. That's why the future is always catching them unawares. That's why they never get the results that they want. Because they're never looking to the future. And the future is the only thing worth discussing, by the way. The future is really the only thing worth discussing because there's nothing we can do about the past. And we also need to face the future of the bachelor life and realize that things have changed. Many, many things have changed, and we need to change along with them. And we need to grow and improve. But the concern of many that I have, especially for many Bachelor 2.0s, he who returns, the divorced men, those who've been in long-term relationships and now they're single again. What you try and do is you try and relive life through the actions of your past. And those people who understood those actions, they've all gone. So, the counterparts who understood the slang you spoke, who enjoyed the music, who drank the drink, who ate the food that you ate, who frequented the locations that you went to, who read the books that you read, who watched the shows that you watched, right? People who share those things, who relate to you in that way, they've all gotten old too. Right? All those people are old. So what you're going now is you're going out, you're seeing a whole new generation of people and you're trying to act like you relate to them when in fact you don't. Right? This is not to imply that you can't be helpful, you can't be useful, you can't even entertaining. You can't be entertaining or you can't be informative. Of course you can. But you cannot pretend that you are in the same mindset of a 22-year-old when you really don't know what the mindset of a 22-year-old is. Right? So you do, it's like, it's as, myself as the master of the deceptive arts, it's like suddenly coming out and then acting like the practitioners of the deceptive arts. Wondering what is the ancient one gonna discuss today. Imagine I come out here and say to you, okay guys, so what are we discussing today? That would be absurd. The practitioners of the deceptive arts would lose their mind. That's no. Ancient one, you said you're the master of the deceptive arts. You come out here every day saying you're the master of the deceptive arts. Now you're going to come out here on this platform and not know what to say? You, as the master of the deceptive art, you can't even come out here and lie? Seriously? You said you was the master of the deceptive arts. So delineate the deceptive arts, right? Continue, ancient one. This is the logic that the practitioners would have. I cannot now come back and say, well, after decades and decades of being the ancient one, I now want to go back and be as a practitioner and learn all these things all over again. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's unsound, And as one, we need to know our place. You really need to know our place. And this is not to say that as the ancient one, as the Bachelor Supreme, as the master of the deceptive arts, I have power. No, I have responsibility. This is what I was saying is the difference between power and leadership. Power gives you authority, right? If I come out here and say I'm the Bachelor Supreme, all of you start ironing my shirts, I'd get ignored. I'd get absolutely ignored, right? But if I come in and say, as the master of the deceptive arts, I offer you this knowledge. Here's the information, right? I'm responsible for coming in. I'm responsible for giving the information, and I'm responsible for any of the or anything that comes back. So anybody got some questions, anybody got some feedback, I'm responsible to making sure that my information is being understood. This is called being responsible. This is called leadership, right? It is not power. Power is when you pay people to do what you want them, what you want done. That's power, right? That's why they say money is power. You pay people, they'll do what you want, right? You want leadership, you have to motivate your case every single day. But you can't do that by living in the past, right? You can refer to the past anecdotally and say, based on this past information, I believe we should move forward in this direction. I believe the best course of action is this way. And then go ahead and walk that course of action by yourself. And if you are walking the course of action, just as I walked as a vasectomy, and I walk that course of action by myself, and I can say, hey, at the end of this course of action, these are the outcomes. And I will advocate my case, and anybody that seeks to walk that course, I can walk it with them. That's leadership. That's leadership. To say that I've walked the course and I'm walking it, and that I will walk it with you until you get to your vasectomy, until you're done freezing your sperm. I mean, I won't be there when you're freezing that sperm. I think you need to handle that by yourself, and I'm sure you'll have a wonderful time doing it, right? That's a private moment. But the information, the knowledge, the conversation, the wisdom is available, right? And this is what we need. As vasectomites, we need to be able to have this conversation day after day and after day and share this information and this wisdom. And we need to look to the future. We need to, we need to update our synapses. We need to look at the world where we really are, and we need to move to the future. Put away the gold chains. Put away the cap sideways. Start dressing better. Not saying don't dress nice. I mean, everybody wants to dress nice. Dress nice. Dress nice. But understand where you are. You're not that guy with the cap and the chains and the money in the air. That's ridiculous, right? You should have a platinum card in your wallet. That's the level, right? You should be able to buy a plane ticket to the nearest island, right? If you're in the United States, you should be able to go to Puerto Rico or Hawaii, right? That's the nearest island. That kind of situation, this is what growing up means. You grow up gracefully. But otherwise, you'll just be full of regrets, like the benders. And the benders are riddled with regrets. That's why when they come out, they just go straight to their 22, 23-year-old self and ruin everything, right? And I tell you again, you can ruin your bachelor life by doing too much. So let's focus on the future and stop living in the past. That's the message. As well as freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy. Freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy. This is a call to action. And I am the Ancient One. I am the Bachelor Supreme. And I thank you again for your time and your attention. I appreciate it. And I always will. Have a nice day.